What's up everyone, what's happening? I'm your host Ayman Hassan and welcome back to Most Amazing Top 10. Now personally for me, since I was born and raised in a really hot country, I would always rather be hot than cold. Like being cold is one of the most uncomfortable feelings ever, to the point when people have asked me whether I would rather freeze to death or burn to death, I've always chosen the latter, even though it's probably more painful, but yeah. Freezing to death is actually a lot more common than people realize, and a lot of that happens when people go mountain climbing and whatnot, and their bodies are then found ages later. But dead bodies don't even begin to describe all the things found frozen in mountain ranges. You'd be surprised, believe me. So let's find out more. This is the top 10 scariest things found frozen in the Alps. Starting us off with number 10 is OTZI the ICEMAN, which I'm sure all of you have heard of. In 1991, hikers Erica and Helmut Simon found the body of what they thought was the victim of a modern mountaineering accident, but what they really actually found were the remains of a prehistoric human in the Alps who had been preserved in ice for 5,300 years. That makes him the oldest known natural human mummy in Europe, and to be fair, I didn't even know it was a contest. I didn't even know there were more than just him. He seemed to have been murdered as he crossed the valley, since an arrowhead was found in his left shoulder, but cuts on his hand indicated he might have removed it. He also had cerebral trauma, so doctors theorized he must have died from blood loss and his injuries. He had 61 tattoos, advanced gum disease, gallstones, hardened arteries, and he also had parasite eggs in his intestines. So all in all, OTZI was struggling even when he was alive. What's interesting is that based off his stomach contents, his last meal was estimated to be the equivalent of modern day prosciutto. Technology is so advanced, they even managed to study his vocal cords and come up with what they think his voice might have sounded like. And that was in 2016, 25 years after he was discovered. That's insane. Coming in at number 9 are the missing parents. If global warming has any pros whatsoever, it's the fact that the melting ice is revealing a lot of things once hidden. In 2017, the frozen bodies of a Swiss couple were found who had gone missing 75 years prior. Marcelin and Francine Dumoulin had gone to milk their cows on the 15th of August 1942, but they never returned. Their 7 kids said they never stopped looking for them so they could actually give them the funeral that they deserved. The bodies were found on a glacier near a ski lift at an altitude of 8,600 feet. The bodies were near each other and both were in World War II-esque looking clothing, and according to their youngest daughter, that day was the first time Francine had actually gone with her husband. She was always pregnant, so she could never climb the glacier usually, so what bad luck is that? The first time she actually gets to go and she ends up freezing to death. At number 8 we have the battlefield. May 23rd, 1915, Italy began a war with Austria-Hungary in order to annex certain regions that had mostly Italian residents. A lot of the fighting took place at Cono de Cavento, which is 11,051 feet high. Both sides had to work, fight, survive, and win in those critical conditions. They built roads, tunnels, cableways, telephone lines, entire villages of shacks, you name it, they built it. The Austrian Corps of Engineers even built something called the Ice City, which was a bunch of complex tunnels, dorms, and storerooms dug out of the glacier. As the ice on the glacier is melting, the old garrisons are starting to re-emerge. A full tunnel was excavated which was in the same state it had been in 90 years prior. 90 years. That's a hell of a long time. Straw bunk beds, a telephone operator station, a metal stove, even wood to heat the area, it was all just there. The people at the site said it was like walking into a defrosted refrigerator, and they didn't just find war relics like bullets and helmets, they found food, bandages, a deck of cards, dirty laundry, the personal belongings of these men as well. Now it's open to the public and available for visiting, you know, if you can make the climb up there. Filling our number 7 slot are the Roman artifacts. It's always cool when you find something miles away from its origin, because figuring out why and how it was transported is fun in and of itself. Or is that just me? Am I just lame? Let me know. The Schneidejak Pass is a route that links 2 alpine valleys together and is usually used by people going from Italy to the north. Scientists also believe the pass has been used for thousands of years, so a fair amount of trash has collected there over time from all of us. The so-called trash they're talking about is not trash at all. They're actually objects and artifacts which distinctly corresponds to a certain period in time. A bunch of artifacts hailing from the Roman Empire were found there: a belt for a tunic, shoe nails, coins, and even cloak pins. They think perhaps ruins that are located near the place they found the artifacts could have been an old Roman settlement or outpost. I know this one might might just sound like a really boring history lesson to a lot of you, but it's just interesting to imagine like, oh, a Roman soldier was probably really far away from home, walking through the blistering cold to get to England or Germany or wherever, and these were his coins. Like, how many hands did these coins pass through? Food for thought. Or maybe not, maybe you can just skip this point, I don't know. Now at number 6 is the THEODULE Pass mercenary. The mysterious man was unidentified, but it's believed he fell into a crevice above Termat sometime in the 17th century. I mean, that's a broad range. The 17th century was a long time. A couple climbing the glacier in 1984 found his body, his sword, his daggers, pistol, and bags. The name of the exhibit his stuff is displayed in is called the THEODULE Pass mercenary, which is unfortunate because if they had just waited a little bit, they would have been told by researchers that he wasn't a mercenary at all. He was most likely just a wealthy trader who was going to Switzerland from Italy. The shoehorns found in his shoes are actually the oldest shoehorns ever discovered. He also had a bunch of pocket knives and amulets on him, which begged the question of why he needed amulets all the way up in the Alps glacier. I mean, what are you doing with those things, young man? Coming in at number 5 is the plane. Now this one was discovered super recently, back in August of last year. Record high temperatures caused the Goli Glacier in the Bernese Alps to rapidly melt, which revealed a crashed American C-53 Skytrooper. They found everything: the wings, the propellers, the hangars, tin cans, spoons used by passengers, and everything, albeit old, was in perfect frozen condition. Well, as perfect condition as a crashed plane could be in, so you can, take that how you will. The Swiss Air Force led the plane's rescue mission in 1946, and their footprints were also perfectly preserved near the crash site. At number 4 is the hand. Rescue teams were called to the Zars Valley because 2 climbers coming down from a peak saw a hand and 2 shoes poking out from the Horlob Glacier. That's just the thing you want to see while you're on a romantic hike with your loved one, a frostbitten hand. When the rescue teams finally got there, they spent 2 hours freeing a mummified body with ice picks and their bare hands. The remains of the body were DNA matched to a German man who was born in 1943 and who disappeared after setting off on a hike in August 1987. One of the rescue workers claimed the shoes the man were wearing were just simply unsuitable for walking on ice, and so he probably just slipped and fell down a crevice. Both of his feet were detached from his body, so the fall must have been pretty brutal. That's so scary. Like, imagine that was you. You're at the bottom of this crevice. Your feet are literally not even attached at this point. If you scream, no one will hear you. You probably have a set amount of food and water before you A, starve to death, B, freeze to death, or C, get buried under snowfall. It would just have been the scariest situation. I'm not here for it. Filling our number 3 slot are the soldiers. We already know living in trenches during any war would have been hell for anyone living through it, but the Italian and Austro-Hungarian soldiers living in the Alps lived through a different kind of hell. They had to be in battlefields thousands of feet above sea level in minus 30-degree weather. People just hadn't fought on that scale or height before, and a lot of people died, many of them just getting lost to the snow. It was even dubbed the White War. But in 2004, again thanks to global warming, their bodies have started reappearing. First 3 Austro-Hungarian soldiers were found, and every year since then more and more have been found. Now at number 2 is the box of treasure. Yeah, literally a box of treasure. In 2013, an anonymous mountain climber was on Mont Blanc when he found a box in the ice. And mind you, the guy was a seasoned climber and he had found tons of items in the snow before, like plane parts, wheels, pieces of mineral, etc. But he really struck gold with this discovery. The box contained 100 jewels. I'm talking sapphires, rubies, emeralds, you name it. I mean, the value of everything in there was near $300,000, give or take. He literally could have made his life right there if he had just sold them, but he decided to be a good person and hand them over to the mayor of Chamonix. We now know the origin of the box was an Air India flight that crashed in the area back in 1966. The weather was horrible and all 117 passengers died, and absolutely nothing was ever recovered except bits of wreckage here and there. While looking for the rightful owners of the box, 2 families claimed it was theirs, but authorities just aren't making it easy for them to prove it. Locals believe the mayor and the climber actually have a deal that if the rightful owner isn't found within 2 years, they'll just split the jewels 50-50, which I really don't get. If the climber was interested in 50% of it, he may have just kept kept the whole thing and not have told anyone about it. And finally, at number 1 is the Manitoba hiker. Now Jeff Fryer was a teacher from Manitoba who went on a 5-kilometer hike in the German Alps back in August of 2018 but never returned home. After not hearing from him, his sister Amanda got worried and his mother, best friend and 400 other volunteers went to search for him. They ended up finding his body frozen over at the base of the Wazonek mountain. It seemed like he had just fallen about 60 meters down and that there was no evidence of foul play on his body. Rich Manfield, a fellow rock climber who had been helping with the search, posted on YouTube saying how the area Jeff was climbing may have been smaller peak-wise compared to other places, hence it was really underestimated, but it's actually a really tough climb. As an experienced climber himself, he said the ridgeline is very precarious and it just takes one slip. If you can't recover from that one slip, you're basically done for. His body was found in a thick brush 3 kilometers away from the last location he posted on social media from. Well, at least social media is good for one thing in that regard. And that's it for today's video, guys. This just sort of freaked me out because there are so many mountain ranges, glaciers, and just generally frozen areas in the world, and if all of this was just found in the Alps, God knows what else is hidden all around the world. And this wasn't even the full list of what could be found up there. There's a lot more. Let me know which one surprised you the most in the comments, guys, and as always, I'm your host Ayman Hassan, and I'll see you next time. Bye!